Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua. The last couple of days we've been looking at a large section in the middle of Joshua that covers chapters 13 through 19, in which the promised land is divided among the tribes. Each of the tribes of Israel receives their inheritance. Now, at this point, they've already taken possession, essentially, of the promised land. There are still some pockets of resistance, but by and large, they control the entire land. And so Joshua, along with the elders of the people and Eleazar, the high priest, they divide the land into the inheritance amongst all the tribes. Now, yesterday we looked at the inheritance of the tribes who were on the east side of the Jordan River. Those who wanted their possession on the east of the Jordan. They received it. Moses has already given them theirs, and Joshua reaffirms that. And then chapters 15 through 19 will describe the division of the promised land proper on the west side of the Jordan River amongst the other tribes. And you read through this rather quickly as you read, for instance, in chapter 15, Judah, the tribe of Judah, is given their inheritance. And then in chapters 16 and 17, the tribes that came from Joseph receive their inheritance. Now you remember, there's not a tribe called Joseph, but Joseph, his descendants become two tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh, two of the sons of Joseph. So chapters 16 and 17 describe the inheritance of Manasseh and Ephraim. Now these are the largest tribes, Judah, Manasseh, and Ephraim. Those are the largest tribes. The other tribes are smaller, but their inheritance is also discussed. In chapter 18, we read about the inheritance of Benjamin. And then in chapter 19, we read the inheritance of the other six. That is the tribes of Simeon and Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan. So when you read through these chapters, you see all of the tribal inheritance. They all receive their due portion. Now, they are told they must go and take possession of their areas. Most of the land is under their control, but there's already left still a few pockets of resistance. So each tribe is to overcome the resistance left in their area and to finish the conquest, sort of mopping up details of the conquest. Basically, most of the land is under their control. There's just a few pockets, places, cities of resistance left among the Canaanites. But each tribe is responsible for subduing that resistance and totally and firmly taking control of their area. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, when you read these chapters, it's easy to kind of get lost in the geography because most of it is simply descriptions of cities and territory which each tribe inherits. So the best way to read them is, as you read these chapters, have yourself a good Bible map at hand, a map that shows the Old Testament tribal division. So as you read, then you can look at the map and see where each tribal territory is located. Now, as you read through these chapters, there's also two sections amongst all the tribal divisions where land is specifically given to individuals. There are two individuals, two men, who are singled out for the inheritance they will receive as individuals and as families. Their families will receive that. It's interesting because most of this section, all of it really, except for these two exceptions, deals with tribal inheritance, but two men are singled out for individual inheritance. And these men are Caleb, his inheritance is talked about in chapter 14, and Joshua. His inheritance is talked about in chapter 19. You might wonder, why are these two men singled out for their individual inheritance? It's because of their importance in the life and history of Israel. Caleb and Joshua were such significant figures in Israelite history. You remember 40 years before, when Israel was leaving Mount Sinai after receiving the Ten Commandments, coming into covenant with God, the plan was to immediately go in and take possession of the land. So Moses sends 12 spies into the land of Canaan. They're to journey over the land and bring back a report, which they do. The 12 spies come back and they say, yes, the land indeed flows with milk and honey, but we cannot take it because the giants are in the land. We can't take them. We can't defeat them. And they spread fear among the people. And because the spies brought back that bad report and created fear, God said to the people, you'll wander in the wilderness for 40 years. Your children will take possession of the land because you didn't believe you could do it. That was the report of the 12 spies, except for two. Of those 12 spies, there were 2 who came back with a minority report and said, yes, there are giants in the land. Yes, the Nephilim are there, but we can take it. Let's go in and take the land. God will be with us. Those 2 men were Caleb and Joshua. Of that initial generation, they were the only 2 who entered the promised land because they believed. They're still with Israel. They're still in leadership position. Joshua, of course, leads them all. And therefore, because of their faith, their steadfast belief in God, the kind of people they were, they are singled out for an individual inheritance. And so in this section, in chapter 14, it talks about Caleb's inheritance. And then in chapter 19, it talks about Joshua's inheritance. We'll look at those 2 inheritances in particular in tomorrow's session. So join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua.